And then we'll start with presentation, and then we'll move into Q&A. And then the recording of this webinar is actually going to be posted to YouTube, and then we'll share it with you in a follow-up email. So don't feel the pressure to capture everything and take notes, because we'll share all the good stuff with you afterwards. So to make the Q&A more efficient, direct all your questions to the Q&A box. So the chat function is disabled. You won't be able to use that. But we will be gathering questions from the Q&A box during the presentation and during the Q&A session. And then at the end, we'll address your questions. So this is a quick glance at this evening's agenda. We'll first talk about SunShares for a bit, and then we'll hear from our 3 guest speakers. We have the switches on, Bayren, and Ride and Drive Clean. I'll also introduce our panelists after I talk a little bit about SunShares. And then we also have our Q&A at the end. So if you don't know already, Bay Area SunShares is a solar and storage discount program. We pool the buying power of all 9 Bay Area counties to help negotiate reduced prices for a limited time campaign every fall. So the goal of this program is to make clean energy more accessible and affordable, but also make the Bay Area more sustainable and resilient as a whole. So all residents of the Bay Area's now 9 counties are eligible to participate in our program. And then our discount season for solar and storage is actually open now until November 15th. So SunShares has been a program of the Bay Area for a while. It started in 2012 as Solarize, and then it moved to the city of San Jose. And then it's now run by the Business Council on Climate Change. So we've installed over 5.8 megawatts of solar and over 200 plus battery storage units in the Bay Area. We've helped a ton of people through this process and are excited to continue providing this service across the Bay Area. So if you're interested, discounts for solar and storage are available now until November 15th. And in order to claim this discount, you'll sign up and fill out the form on our website. And then the installers will contact you and work with you to create a customized proposal. So if you decide to go solar, sign your contract before December 15th so you can kind of lock in that discounted pricing that you saw in your proposals. And then if you know of SunShares already, and if you've already signed up, be on the lookout for any calls or emails from our installers, because they will be contacting you. So I'll drop really quickly in the chat the link for signing up if you're interested. And before our panelists present, I'd like to touch on one thing. So an important piece of solar is electrification. So if you're generating clean energy from the sun, you should consider using that electricity to power your at-home appliances like your stove or your water heater. So for example, you can get the most out of your clean energy system by improving your energy efficiency, which will help reduce your consumption, switching to electric appliances, and electrifying your transportation. So with more electrification, you'll reduce your consumption and need for gas, and then you'll get even more value out of your solar system. So with that said, I'd like to introduce our speakers for the day. So today we have with us Friday from Building Decarb, also switches on. We have Annika from Cool to Earth. She also works on the Ride and Drive Clean campaign, and then Paul from Bayren. So I'll first pass it to Friday.
Hello, thank you all for joining tonight. I'm really glad to be here. I'm going to talk to you about home electrification. So welcome to the all-electric future. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to start with talking about what we mean when we say home electrification. Really, we mean every single appliance in your house runs on only electricity. So no natural gas pipelines going to your house for anything. Next slide. And why are we talking about that? Really, it's because we can make electricity out of just about anything, right? We can make it out of the sun, we can make it out of the wind, we can make it out of the waves, or algae, or you name it. There's a whole bunch of things we can make electricity out of. And when we put those electrons onto the grid, if everybody is powering their homes from electricity from the grid, we can make sure that all of that electricity is clean and renewable. But if we are piping gas directly into our homes, there's no way to clean that up. There's no greener version of dinosaur bones. It's just gas, right? Next slide. And gas is actually not the clean fuel that everybody thought that it was. I grew up here in California, and I will share with you all that, like, as a young person, I remember that gas was the clean stuff, right? California was leading the way. We were using natural gas. It was cleaner burning. So I recognize that sometimes it's really easy to think that maybe that was the right thing. And so for 3 main reasons, we know now that it is not. One, it is a really methane gas, or natural gas, as we often call it, is actually a very potent greenhouse warming gas. And so it's really not great for climate change. It's also really bad for outdoor air quality. It turns out that all of our gas appliances in our buildings contribute more to smog than cars do. That's because we've done a really good job of cleaning up our cars and a really bad job of cleaning up the rest of our appliances. And also, finally, it really impacts our indoor air quality. So when we burn combustible fuel inside our homes with furnaces or water heaters or ranges when we're cooking, it can contribute to really air inside that's so dirty and so polluted that if it were outside, it would be illegal. But we don't regulate indoor air quality, so it isn't illegal. But we do know that it has very severe health effects, that 20% of childhood asthma cases in California can be attributed to a home with a gas stove. So that's pretty stark. And this is the last of my sad things to share with you today. So knowing that we want to electrify our homes, let's go to the next slide and I'm going to talk about the 4 major appliances inside your house. And then Annika gets to talk about the major appliance that's outside of your house. So first, the big one is how you heat and cool your air. We would like you to do that with a heat pump. A heat pump HVAC system is great because it's 2 machines in 1 machine. So a heat pump provides both heat and cooling. Think of it like an air conditioner that runs in 2 directions. So this is a picture of me in my backyard. I will tell you, I have a duplex. So I live in one apartment. My mom lives in the other apartment. That's why I have 2 heat pumps. You don't need 2 heat pumps. You just need 1. And that's the condenser unit that goes outside. There's also, for me, there's an air handler that is inside. And then I have a ducted system, but heat pumps come in all shapes and sizes. So have no fear, there's a solution for you. And what a heat pump does is, rather than creating heat, or creating energy, I should say, by combustion, it moves energy from one place to another. We all have heat pumps in our house already. They're in our refrigerators. When you open the refrigerator door, it's cool inside. And when you stand in front of it, your feet get warm, right? Because the warm air pushes out onto your feet. And the same thing happens with a heat pump, right? It pulls all of the heat out of the air and condenses it down and puts it into like a refrigerant of some kind, right? That transfers that heat into your home. And it works in the opposite direction too. So it can do the same thing. It can condense all the cool and put that into your house instead. And so rather than creating energy, it is moving energy from one place to the next. And that makes it 3 times more efficient than any gas-powered furnace that you have. 300% more efficient. So that's pretty good. Also, they're super quiet, which is a really nice benefit. They work in sub-zero temperatures, which we don't yet have in the Bay Area. Hopefully that won't be the case, but just in case you are interested in them for somewhere in the Northeast or Tahoe, they work. And last thing I will just say, I didn't put this on here, but if you are a fan of even temperature, a heat pump is really great. You don't oscillate between really hot and then really cold and then really hot and then really cold. Just keeps an even temperature all the time. So next slide. Heat pumps work for water heaters too. And tomorrow is National Heat Pump Water Heater Day. So if you love your heat pump water heater, tomorrow is a great day to go on social media and say so. This is me last year appreciating my heat pump water heater. And the thing I like the very most about it is just that it works, right? That's what we want the most from our water heater. We just want it to work all the time. And mine does. And that heat pump works the same as it does outside on my water heater. So the top half of this is just a heat pump plopped on top of a water tank. It pulls the hot air, the hot out of the air, puts it into the water, and it is also 3 times or 300% more efficient than a gas-fired water heater. And it's smart. So I can set my water heater to only heat the water during off-peak hours. That's great for me because I'm not paying for expensive electricity, and it's great for the grid because it means that I'm not stressing the grid during those peak hours when I do want to take a shower or wash my dishes or cook my food or whatever it is. So it's really great. It's kind of like a thermal battery, right? I can use the energy when it's abundant and inexpensive to heat the water, and then I can use my hot water whenever I need it. So next slide. Heat pumps continue. They also come in dryers. More colloquially, we say like a ventless dryer. There are lots of folks who have ventless dryers and don't realize that they're heat pumps. But that's the thing that I think is the coolest about a heat pump dryer. It is about 50% more efficient than a regular electric resistance dryer. But the best thing is there's no vent. So you don't have to poke a hole in your wall, and you can put it wherever you need. So the vent doesn't have to be the thing that dictates where you put your dryer. As I mentioned, they are very energy efficient and also really gentle on your clothes. I will add that the side bonus, although not related to electrification, is that when you don't have a vent, you're not blowing a bunch of little tiny microplastics out into the air. So those all get captured, and that's also really good for our Bay Area environment. So next slide, please. Last but not least, cooking. Everybody loves to talk about cooking. That's the thing we do have an emotional connection to. This is Martin Yan. You all know him because he is a famous Bay Area celebrity. I will say he is also a legit global celebrity. And he is all in on induction. And you can add him to, he is potentially the first of a very long list of professional chefs, all of whom you know, who work and use induction and enjoy it. I personally have been cooking on induction for almost 15 years. And I love it for a million reasons. I could spend this whole hour just talking about induction cooking, but I will keep it very brief here. One is that it is incredibly efficient. So when you use gas to cook your food, 70% of that fuel gets used just to heat up the air. Only 30% of that fuel actually heats up your food. With induction, because it uses magnetism, something like 95% of that energy gets used to heat up your food. And here's how it works. So magnetism makes all the molecules in the pots and pans bump together, and that's how it makes heat. So we're going to do this together. What happens when you do this? Your hands get hot. And when you stop, your hands cool down.
It looks like Friday is frozen a little bit. We'll give her a second to load back in. Maybe, Paul, do we want to move to your slides and then we'll revisit Friday once she reconnects?
Yeah, that's perfect. And I'll touch base on some of the topics that she's talked about. So
Okay.
that's perfect.
All right. Let me cycle through and just find. All right.
Awesome.
Apologies.
No, thank you, Lauren. So thank you all for attending tonight. And why is BayREN here? BayREN is the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, and it offers incentives to the 9 Bay Area counties. So it's a collaboration of the 9 Bay Area counties funded by ratepayer tax dollars, such as yourselves. So it oversees efficiency programs, including single family, green labeling, and multifamily. And tonight we will focus on the single family side. Next slide. And this shows a brief snapshot of what is currently available. So this, again, very similar to what Friday was talking about. Why is BayREN here? We offer incentives for those devices that she was talking about. Heat pumps, heat pump water heaters, insulation, which is a big part of your heat pump. If you don't insulate your house, you're going to have a heat pump, but that heat pump is going to be basically pushing that air into your space, and then it's going to leave just like your furnace would. So we want to focus on the envelope too. So looking at all of this, these are incentives that can help to reduce project costs. And also, again, similarly, if you're looking at doing a heat pump, maybe you think I want to do some attic insulation or I want to do some wall insulation. I want to make my house a little bit more comfortable as well as install that new electric item and get away from gas. So these incentives are there to help reduce those costs. And next slide, please. And there are up to about $5,000 in rebates. That does assume that you're doing a majority of that work, but it does include those things like we've talked about: insulation, weatherization, heat pumps, not necessarily furnaces so much anymore, but furnaces are still an offering, and then water heaters. Specifically, heat pump water heaters are what almost everybody's using nowadays. And then we do have participating contractors that are trained and vetted. So they actually install these devices for you, and you know that you're getting a good product at the end of the day. If there's any issues, we're here to try to help out. Do what we can to be an advocate for anybody going through this process. It's entirely free. So the only thing you would actually pay for it is the work. But any conversation you would have with our advisors, they help entirely for free. So kind of like what Friday was saying, what's a heat pump? What does it do? Refrigerators are an amazing example. Everybody's got one. Everybody knows how they work, and everyone's experienced exactly like she said. You walk around it and it's warm in the wintertime specifically is usually when you feel that, but you can even feel that in the summer. And like she said as well, a heat pump is a very constant thing. You would never turn down your refrigerator at night, but everybody does that with their heating. So with a heat pump for your heating, same thing. You keep it steady state, and then your house, just like your refrigerator, it's always going to be at that temperature you want. So those are the conversations, questions, things that our advisors can help with when looking to complete some of these projects. Then next slide.
I think that's all the slides I
Yeah.
actually have for you, Paul. Do you want to?
No, that's perfect. So
Okay.
just a summation for the BayREN program. Again, we do have our advisors. They are very valuable. You can see the phone number on the bottom. There is a bookings link. I will throw that in the chat here as well. And what they help with, again, is anything. You just bought your house, you have questions about what I should do. I have no idea what I'm getting into. If your bills are high, if you have really high utility bills, or even if you just think your bills are high, give us a call. Our advising team can help with that. And then if you're looking for actually completing work and you say, hey, I've got 3 different estimates and I don't know how to make heads or tails of this, our advisors can help. So it's a very useful system, great service to the community, and again, it's entirely free. So take advantage of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
Welcome back Friday. I'm gonna cycle back to your slides and then we'll start off. It's like you were here the entire time.
All right. I'm so sorry, y'all. Okay, so I was talking about induction cooking. Did y'all hear me talk about magnetism?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I think that's maybe where we left off. And what I was saying about the magnetism is that it can heat up and cool down really precisely and very fast. So you can boil a gallon of water on an induction range in 2 minutes. On a electric coils, right, that we think of with electric cooking, right, that takes a really long time. That takes like 6 minutes. And it's even longer, I think 8 minutes for a gas-fired range. So you can boil water super fast, which is great for me. I have a young child. Pasta is like the fast meal in my house. But even better than that is you can go from boiling to not boiling as fast as you can press the button. And that's really where that precision matters with induction cooking, right? We all want to have this very precise and very responsive cooking experience. So we have energy efficiency, we have that it is really precise, and never mind that also it's much healthier, right? We're not breathing that gas, that combustion, the particulate that comes with it. It turns out there are carcinogens and other really unhealthy chemicals in partially combusted gas that come from your range. Also, all of that heat and gas and flame, they can catch you on fire, right? So we don't want that. I, again, have a young child, so I really appreciate that I can cook with him and it's really safe. You can put your hand on the top of your induction range and you're not going to burn yourself. It doesn't turn on unless there is a magnet that, magnetized metal. You could put a paper towel underneath and cook over the top of a paper towel, which makes cleaning really easy. This is where I could go on for hours about cooking, and I won't. But it is very easy to clean. It adds extra countertop space. I don't have hot pot handles anymore. I don't worry about my kiddo getting burned. My pans aren't scorched on the sides. They stay beautiful. So, and you don't necessarily need to get new cookware. I have my grandmother's cast iron that works wonderfully. Your enameled cast iron or stainless steel, my $5 IKEA pan works great. The pots and pans that I got for my wedding also work. It's really easy to find out if that works for you. Just grab a magnet from your refrigerator, and if it sticks to your pot or pan, then you're good to go. The only thing that doesn't work is something that would be like all the way through aluminum or all the way through copper. And that's not very typical. So most pots and pans work just fine. Next slide, please. So I tell you all about these electric appliances because they are the future. And keeping this to the Bay Area, I can say there are many jurisdictions in the Bay Area who already have building decarbonization codes and policies. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District just made a rule saying that starting in 2027, we are not going to be able to purchase gas-fired furnaces or water heaters. So now is the time to make the plan. Take a look at the Bay-Ren incentives that Paul was just talking about. Utilize the SunShares program. There are all kinds of incentives available. So making a plan is really important. And it's not just here in the Bay Area. 1 in 4 Americans now lives in a jurisdiction that has a decarbonization policy. So it is the future. Next slide. And actually, you can skip this one, just go to the next one. The Building Decarbonization Coalition has a website called The Switch Is On. It is full of information about all that I've talked to you about this evening. This is the homepage of the website. You can go there to find more information about electric appliances. We have information for renters, and we have blog posts and a newsletter, all kinds of information to help you. Next slide. And maybe more importantly, we have two really key tools. One is the Incentive Finder tool. It includes all of the Bay Rent incentives that you just heard about, and they're fantastic, but it also includes the federal tax credits and federal incentives that are available. It includes all of the statewide rebates that are available through Tech Clean California and other statewide programs. There are other regional programs, so you may also, aside from BayRen, there are also CCAs that offer their own incentives that you can combine with BayRen incentives. And there are also even local jurisdictions that offer their own incentives. So if you're in the Bay Area and you put your zip code in, you may find that you're looking at somewhere between 20 and 25 incentives available to you for stacking. So definitely check that out. And we have a contractor finder tool. So if you're having a hard time finding a contractor, you can definitely look on our tool. We have a list of all of the folks who have qualified for the incentive programs and have been trained in order to put these appliances in. And I know that our contractor list overlaps with the BayRen list, right? You have to be able to qualify for the BayRen incentives as well if you're on our list. So lots of good synergy between us and the BayRen team. And with that, I will be done and say thank you so much for your patience with me as the internet and technology sometimes goes a little sideways.
Thank you so much, Friday. All right, I will now pass it to Annika.
Great. Thank you so much, Lauren. I'm Annika Osborne with Cool the Earth, an environmental nonprofit with a mission to reduce carbon emissions and air pollution. With our Ride and Drive Clean collaboration, we work to advance the adoption of electric vehicles, EVs, and e-bikes in a fair and just marketplace. In the Bay Area, our passenger vehicles are the single largest source of emissions. They represent about 50% of our individual carbon footprint. I want to thank Lauren and the SunShares team for inviting me to talk today. You know, when we ride and drive electric, there's nothing better than plugging into clean, affordable solar energy generated from our own rooftop. Next. So in addition to reducing your impact on the planet, there's no sacrifice when you go electric. You can save time, money, and enjoy the ride just a little bit more. Although early EV drivers paid a high premium for electric vehicles, today's EV drivers often save money, and here are some reasons why. It costs much less to fuel an electric car. Fueling a gas car can be 2 to 5 times more expensive than fueling an electric car, depending upon where and when you charge it. And electricity prices tend to be more stable than gas prices, as we've seen over the last few years. In addition, maintenance costs are 40% lower for EVs. It's basically adding windshield incentives available for up to $7,500, which can bring down the cost of purchasing or leasing an EV. And I'll dive right into those incentives right now. So there are currently 4 types of incentives that can help you save up to $7,500 when you buy an EV. There are additional grants and rebates available for both new and used EVs for people who qualify. We won't be going into great detail on those today, but I do have information about them and can share during the Q&A period. The federal tax credit was revamped last year, and it's now called the Clean Vehicle Credit. There are new qualifications for this tax credit, and there are about 15 EVs that qualify for the federal tax credit, either the full $7,500 or $3,750. There is also a new pre-owned EV tax credit. It's 30% of the cost up to $4,000. It's a little bit more. The federal tax credit is now income qualifying. So if you file jointly, you have to earn less than $300,000 a year in order to qualify. With the pre-owned, it's a little bit more stringent restrictions on the income there. And what's nice is that these discounts, the tax credit can stack with other programs as well. There's the home charging federal tax credit, 30% of the cost of install and hardware of if you would like a level 2 charger at your home, up to $1,000. There are also utility and CCA incentives. For example, PG&E has their pre-owned EV rebate. The standard rebate is $1,000 that anybody in the PG&E service area can qualify for. And if you get your electricity from a CCA, you also qualify for that one. But up to $4,000 if your income, depending upon your income. And then there's the EV discount campaign. It's something Ride and Drive Clean, my organization, is organizing, and it's on right now. These are some great savings calculators that you can check out, so you can find out exactly which incentives you qualify for. Next. So I'll just talk briefly about our, yes. Well, I'll come back to the other one that I thought I was doing now, but that was my bad. There are now so many new EVs and plug-in hybrids available. There are more coming each year. There's really one for every lifestyle and budget. Most fully electric EVs offer 200 to 300 miles of range. Some will go even farther on one range. That means you can go from San Francisco to Tahoe with maybe a 10 or 15-minute stop to charge, or you can go from San Francisco to Sacramento and back without having to charge at all. So it wasn't quite like this 5 years ago. So things are moving quickly, and this is really great news. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about our current EV discount campaign that's going on. We just launched it this last week. It'll be going on actually through, it says here, October 31st. It'll go into November, probably through Thanksgiving. These are the 3 cars that we have discounts on right now. We work with a car concierge service called Cartelligent, and they are able to negotiate special deals on EVs. They work with a variety of dealerships, so that's how we can pass along these great discounts to consumers. And then there are additional, you can work with Cartelligent for other EVs as well. There are a lot of EVs that don't qualify for the federal tax credit, which is for purchase only, do qualify for special discounts if you lease them. So many of these dealers are offering a $7,500 lease bonus. So that's kind of a way around some of the more restrictions on the federal tax credit. And the way this works is you would go to our website. I'll put it in at the end of of my presentation. You would sign up there, and then Cartelligent will call you within 48 hours. Okay. We've been doing these discount campaigns for about 4 years, and we've helped about 380 people switch to driving electric during this time. So it's a really great time to to go electric when you can get these extra discounts. So now it's just a matter of which EV to get. And as you can see here, there are so many different models available. And if you're not in the market for an EV, an e-bike might be right for you. Instead of hopping in a gas car, you can try commuting or running errands with an e-bike. So e-bikes are really fast and fun. There are so many different types to choose from cargo to commuter to recreational bikes. And next slide. And we happen to also have an e-bike discount campaign going on right now. We're partnered with Rad Power Bikes on this one. And it's actually through the end of this year, up to $400 off a Rad Power Bike. And just to give you, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but they have 10 different bike models, and 9 of them are available for less than $1,999. Now I sound like a used car salesperson, but anyway, really great deals on great value e-bikes. And then in addition to that great pricing, we're offering $400 off through the end of the year if you purchase your bike at Rad Power Bikes. Their only Bay Area store is in Berkeley. And so you can purchase it by going into the store or by calling them, but you can't do an online order. But again, the way to do this is to go to the Ride and Drive Clean e-bike discount campaign page and fill out a form at the bottom. And then you'll get an email with the discount code that you can bring into the store with you. All right, next. So a little bit more about who we are and what we do. Like SunShares, we run discount campaigns to reduce the cost of EVs and e-bikes. We know that's the biggest barrier. And we currently have both an EV and an e-bike discount campaign. We put on EV and e-bike shows in the Bay Area, typically from like April through October. We just had 7 or 8 EV shows throughout the Bay Area in the last few months. We also do workplace programs. So if you think the place where you work would like to bring in either a webinar or an EV show, we're happy to work with them to help workplace, employees go electric. The nice thing about workplace and having people at the workplace charging at work is that there's so much solar energy during the day when the sun is shining that we'll know they are charging their cars with very clean, renewable energy. We also offer EV guides, how to EV and e-bike on our website. So that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Annika. So before we move into our Q&A, I just want to say we have one more event for SunShares. So we have 3 public informational webinars each season, and we have one more left on November 1st. So if you're interested in learning more about solar and storage, you can, this is your last chance to join that webinar and maybe ask a pre-vetted installer question during our live Q&A. I can also share the link for registration in the chat. But we'll go into questions. So feel free to submit your questions now. I actually have a question for each of our panelists. So I don't own a home, but I am a renter, and I'm wondering, is there sort of an order of operations for electrifying your home or, starting my clean energy journey? Where would you start if you had a fresh slate?
Well, I'll start by answering from my perspective, which is start where you can. Everybody's entry place into this is going to be different. For some folks, it looks like the machine that broke first, and that's the thing that they're going to focus on. Or for other folks, it's the thing that seems the easiest. And if you're a renter, there are a lot of appliances that you can bring with you, right? So maybe start with an induction hob. That's something that can plug in and you can bring with you from one place to the next. There are programs for lending hobs, so you can test them out. There are also heat pumps that go in your window, again, that you can self-install and you can bring with you from one place to the next. So there's no right answer there. It's whatever works best for you. And that's from my perspective, but I bet Annika and Paul have some thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, definitely great starting point, Friday. It's something that we know, not everybody's going to have an insane amount of money to just throw at things, and especially if you're a renter. You don't want to be investing in a property that's not necessarily even your own. So there are those little things, the induction hobs, the portable heat pump units. Those are probably your best option. The other thing too is, maybe even convince your landlord to do something. Every now and again, I've had landlords actually insulate their properties, or maybe they, the water heater is going out. It's getting old, so they want to put in a heat pump water heater now. Some of that is education from those renters. So it's not necessarily something that property manager was thinking of prior to that, but now they've heard that idea, they've looked at the comps, they've done whatever they need to do to figure out that, yeah, this might be a good idea. So that's another thing, is just educating your landlords. Aside from that, again, it's just the low-hanging fruit. I actually had a friend back in the day that when LEDs were becoming a thing, he bought a bunch of them, installed them, kept all the old bulbs, and when he left his place, he took his LEDs with him and installed all the old bulbs behind him. So it can be done. You can do some tricky stuff, but Again, do what's reasonable. You don't have to be the eco warrior that's saving the world, but we want you to do what you can.
Yeah, and I'll just add, all of these different solutions that everybody has talked about today are really important. So whatever makes the most sense for you is great. In terms of transportation, if you're not ready to get a whole new car, really an e-bike is a great way to reduce your vehicle miles driven. They're really fun. It's a great way to get exercise. I live close to an elementary school, and I love watching families. Like it's like the new like minivan, but like, it's so fun watching lots of families, zoom by on e-bikes, like 4 people on them. And so that's a really great, starting point. And the price is right there. It's easier to get into than a new car if you're not, we know there's a law passed that in 2035 you can't buy a gas car in California, but so everybody's on their own like time frame in their journey to going electric, and really just start where you can.
I will +1 to Annika and say that I take my kid to an elementary school on a rad power bike, and it's super fun. And there's like a whole bunch of kids that do it. And that was the thing that got me biking. I wasn't really a biker before. I'm not interested in sweating, but I really think it's great. And my kiddo and I have a really fun time. It's a great way to get to the soccer games when there's no parking and everybody's like, oh, it's going to be miserable. And I'm like, not for us. We show up on our bicycle and it's super fun. So highly endorse.
Thank you so much. I feel like I have to rewatch this recording and then take notes on how all the solutions you all listed out, because that was extremely helpful. We do have one question in the chat. So Joanne was wondering, I want to add batteries to my solar panels. Is there a program for that? And the answer is yes. So that's SunShares can definitely help you with that. Installers do retrofits on existing solar panel systems. So I would definitely encourage you to sign up and talk to an installer. I dropped the chat for the sign up page, and I can drop it again in the chat, but that is a great way to bring more value to your solar panel system, and a SunShares pre-vet installer can definitely help with that. We have a question from Wendy. Looks like I'm on a street in Berkeley that has underground electrical already. And to upgrade to 200A from our current 125A, it's taken over 8 months with PG&E to get a drawing and 1 Class A contractor. That kind can work with fixed utilities to do conduit upgrade. They quoted us $53,000 to do this work. We're on board with the electrification, already have solar installed in EV, heat pump, water heater. But are there any resources for them? Because that is not money. They don't have money to upgrade to an electrical panel.
Yeah, that's a really great question, and one that we hear a lot, especially from folks who are early adopters. Couple good things to know about. There are the Inflation Reduction Act does include incentives for your panel upgrade. So there are federal tax credits there. Paul can answer this, but I think there are also BayREN credits for panel upgrades. Is that right?
Not through BayREN, but depending on where you're at, Peninsula Clean Energy is one entity that has them. So there's a lot of different entities, and I've mentioned this in one of the responses to someone that asked a question earlier, is check with your local cities, municipalities, sometimes counties. They oftentimes have additional incentives on top of what else is offered. So usually the funding source is the issue. When you have a CCA or a municipality, a city, they have their own funding pool, whereas BayREN comes again from CPUC ratepayers. So everybody that pays into basically PG&E, and that's what they're looking at. So you can stack things. There are additional incentives. As far as the electric panel itself, that can be a consideration. And if you look at, I know Redwood Energy has a really good, useful guide. It's pretty comprehensive, but doing things like panel sharing, or
Yeah.
circuit sharing on your panel, that is a great way to avoid this. If you're close to the amperage, it's not a guarantee, but again, like we were talking about with LEDs, we used to build circuits that were 15, 20 amps, and we don't need that. It's way too much power. We're never going to utilize that with our new devices. So sometimes, not always, but sometimes you can finagle your panel in such a way that what you have is all you need. And that's where we would recommend anyway, because just like you said here, $53,000,
A lot of money.
that's a big chunk, especially if you're just trying to get a few electrical devices.
I can tell you that I ran my house all electric on 60 amps without running a breaker while I was waiting 18 months for PG&E to upgrade my service. So I very much feel the pain of that. And also I can tell you that you can do it. These modern appliances are incredibly efficient, and sometimes our building codes have not caught up to that. And there are a lot of Bay Area contractors who are on the leading edge of ensuring that we are good panel stewards. And so a combination of all of these things. One, yes, there is help to help you pay for your panel upgrade, but also there are new products like 120 volt water heater and 120 volt induction range that you can plug in that don't require a dedicated panel breaker. And so there's really good ways to be like good stewards of your panel. And for the most part, it's becoming clear that you can do this with 100 amps of service. So if you have less than 100 amps of service, it's pretty tricky. But if you have at least 100 amps and a contractor that's willing to work with you, you can get creative and you can find ways around it. So highly encourage you to talk to contractors who can help you do that. And again, check out the Switches On website. We have that incentive finder tool that lists all of the incentives, federal, state, local, municipal, all of them. So depending on where you live, there may be some really good incentives to help you out. Oh, thanks, Lauren, for putting that in the chat. Sorry, I'm stuck on my phone, so I'm like terrible at the chat.
No worries, I got it. Thanks. We do have a question. So one attendee has kind of been prevented from installing solar because their co-owner who doesn't reside there doesn't agree. Is it possible to do a solar lease unilaterally without their permission? I'm not a solar expert, so I would really check with a solar installer. Also, I would try working with your co-owner to maybe educate them on the benefits of solar. But there are also other options to, harness clean energy to your home without installing solar. So opting up to 100% renewable energy is an option for all Bay Area residents, whether you're on a CCA or utility like PG&E. That's definitely an option. So if you can't go solar, there's always other stuff out there, or you can work on electrifying your home like Freddie and Paul mentioned. Right, and that looks like all of the questions. I'll leave it open for maybe a couple of seconds for anyone to ask a few more questions, but if not, we can wrap up early and then you can all go to dinner.
I actually have a question for Friday, if that's okay, panelist to panelist.
Yeah,
we've been trying to get an electric water, a heat pump water heater, but the problem is we have one of those tankless water heaters outside our home. We like remodeled and got rid of the big tank.
yeah.
And we have a very, not a very deep crawl space under our house. And so we don't really know how we can move forward with a heat pump water heater. Are they going to make those water tanks in different shapes and sizes so that they can fit better?
Yes. This is one of the things that I love telling people about. If you started your electrification journey before, it was harder then. And my executive director is very famous for saying, today is the hardest it will ever be to electrify. Tomorrow will be easier. And I can tell you that's definitely true. So one of the best things is that we're now seeing all these manufacturers who recognize that retrofits can sometimes be a little hairy and like not always straightforward, just like Annika, you mentioned. And so, yeah, there's a heat pump water heater now. There's actually 2 brands that make them where the heat pump is separated from the tank. So the tank is obviously much smaller and you can put it wherever it needs to be. So if you have your if you have your water heater like in a closet or a conditioned space, you don't necessarily want your heat pump to be in that space. Or if you have a really small space, you can separate the heat pump part from the tank part. The tank can live outside. You can put the heat pump in your attic, for example, a place that gets really hot and can use all that heat, right? Or you can put the heat pump part outside where it works really efficiently, and the tank part can be inside where the plumbing all is. There are lots of different ways of managing this. And the same kind of creativity lives with your HVAC system. There are so many different versions of heat pumps that are available. So don't get discouraged if maybe you visited this a year or 2 years ago and you were like, I don't know how to work this out. There are lots of folks who are working creatively to come up with solutions, not only manufacturers, but also contractors. And like I said, we happen to be here in the Bay Area where there are a lot of folks who are leading the way in making that happen, not just in California, but across the country. And a lot of them are working here, which is a really great benefit to the rest of us.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely. That's a great question.
We have one question about SunShares. So why is there such an immediate deadline for SunShares? We could use a bit more time to think of all the suggestions presented. So like I mentioned earlier, the discount season for SunShares is September 1st to November 15th. So this is the time where you can sign up to get on the list for the discount. As long as you've signed up, you've secured the discounted price per watt that installers are going to show you on the proposal. We do have a contract signing deadline for December 15th. This helps, installers sell solar at a discounted rate. So that is something we have. Sometimes installers will offer, extensions for contract signing deadline. So that's something you can talk about with your installer. I would encourage you to be transparent with them and, talk about any doubts that you might have. They're more than happy to help you out. And I'll leave it open a little bit longer in case we have any other questions. We are almost at time though. Okay, why don't we wrap up and I can send you off all early. You can take back 4 minutes of your day, but thank you so much for joining. Feel free to reach out to the email listed here or visit Bay Area SunShares. I will make sure to send a follow-up email with all of the links that all our panelists have shared. I'll also send out the recording and any contact information. Thank you so much, panelists, for joining. I really appreciate you lending your expertise to us tonight. So have a great evening.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, everybody.